Hello, and welcome to the Badhumanist look at the Guardian Druid. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the passives of the abilities of the Guardian Druid, walking through their base toolkit, working them through the talents, looking for synergy, usefulness, how again they're going to fit together to the overall spec. After that, I'll show you some gameplay here, where I'll show you a little bit of how the Guardian Druid will play as a tank. From there, I will then move on to overall look at stats, how the stats are looking, how the stats are going, how the stats will affect. Again, not a stat weight, but again, a sense of how the stats might play out. Follow up by a overall thought and hope for the future summary, moving into my closing thoughts. So let's start with the passives. So again, this is part of a talent. I'll get to that in a little bit. So we have Thick Hive, which reduces all damage taken by 6%. Again, that's just a passive of the Guardian. We also have Nature's Guardian, the Mastery. So again, increases your maximum health and healing received by a certain percent. Also increases your attack power by a certain amount. Lightning Reflexes, you gain dodge equal to 100% of your critical strike on your gear. Gore, Thrash, Swipe, Moonfire, and Maul have a chance to reset the cooldown on Mangle and cause it to generate an additional 4 Rage. You also, of course, have your travel forms, aquatic form, Wild Growth. So Wild Growth here again is part of a part of the Resto affinity that I'm taking here, so we'll skip that for now. So you have travel form. Tiger Dash, again, is part of a talent. You normally have regular dash, so you can augment your dash. You have Thrash, 8-yard range, about cooldown reduced by haste, generates 5 rage, strikes all nearby enemies, dealing bleed damage and additional bleed damage over 15 seconds. When applied from bear form, this effect can stack to 3 times. Of course, I have a teleport back to the Moonglaive. You have Swipe, again, just inflicting physical damage to nearby enemies. Swift Mend, again, is also part of the Resto Affinity. Survival Instincts, 2 charges, reduces all damage you take by 50% for 6 seconds. It's a 4-minute recharge on this. Stampeding Roar, lets loose a wild roar, increasing the movement speed of all friendly players. So again, good utility here. Skull Bash, you charge and bash a target, interrupting spellcasting. This is basically your interrupt. Shred, of course, is part of cat form, so we won't talk about that. Revive, again, is your ability to restore something to life. Again, this is the non-battle res. Rebirth is your battle res. Remove Corruption, again, that removes curse and poison effects. Rejuve, again, is part of the Resto Affinity. Regrowth, you actually do get baseline, but again, it does take you out of form if you cast it. So there is that. Rebirth is your battle res. Prowl activates cat form, places you into stealth. Moonfire does come baseline as well. Quick Beam of Lunar Light burns the enemy for a little bit of damage, but then an additional 2,000 over 16 seconds. It's also usable in bear form. You don't lose your bear form for this. Mighty Bash is a talent. Maul the target for a certain amount of damage. Again, this would be a use for. It's useful when you have as a replacement for Rage with Iron Fur, basically, right? So again, your choices are really Iron Fur or the Maul with the Rage. One, of course, does damage. One, of course, gives you armor. Mangle the target for physical damage, deals 20% additional damage against bleeding targets. We do have Iron Fur, increases armor by a certain amount for 7 seconds. Multiple uses will overlap. It can actually stack. This is a talent. Incapacitating Roar invokes the spirit of Ursol. Let loose a deafening roar. Incapacitates all enemies within 10 yards. Also have Hibernate still. Growl, again, is your taunt. Frenzied Regen, so a little bit changed here. Costs 10 rage. Heals you for 24% of maximum health over 3 seconds. Maximum 2 charges. Again, relatively long recharge there as well. About 30-some seconds reduced by haste. Entangling Roots, again, that is cat form, of course, for the shapeshift, bear form as already in, and then bark skin. Your skin becomes as tough as bark, reducing all damage you take by 20% and preventing damage from delaying your spell casts. It is usable while stunned, frozen, incapacitated, feared, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's your base toolkit. Now let's move into the talents. So we have Brambles here. Brambles, again, is Sharp Brambles, protect you for absorbing and reflecting up to 80 damage from each attack. While Barskin is active, the Brambles also deal nature damage. Again, a little bit of a small reflecting damage and absorbing. Good for kind of AoE packs, but again, not as useful again in a raid setting. Blood Frenzy, Thrash also generates 2 rage each time it deals damage, so again, that can be quite nice. Bristling Fur, again, bristles your fur, causing you to generate rage based on damage taken. So again, if you would like to be able to generate more rage based on the damage you take, you can, of course, take this. Tiger Dash, as I mentioned, it changes your dash. Normally, dash would be a increasing movement speed by 60% with a 2-minute cooldown, last 10 seconds. Tiger Dash changed it to 45-second cooldown, 200%, but then reduces gradually over 5 seconds. In general, I like these lower cooldown even more so because you need some movement speed and you want it up more frequently there. Intimidating Roar, this replaces Incapacitating Roar. So again, this causes all enemies to cower in fear, disorienting them. So again, it's a 30-second cooldown. It does, as I mentioned, replace your Incapacitating Roar, which again is, as you can read here. Well charged, so again, 15-second cooldown. You get different type of travel abilities based upon your form. So you can either fly to an ally's position if you're not shapeshift. You can charge to an enemy, immobilizing them for 4 seconds if you're in bear form. You can leap behind an enemy, dazing them for 3 seconds in cat form. And then in travel form, you simply leap forward 20 yards. If you're in aquatic, it also increases the swim speed by an additional %. So just interesting little more utility there. Now, this is, of course, your affinity row. You have Balance, Feral, and Resto. Resto is the only one I think that directly affects a sense of your tanking ability. The other two, of course, could be very useful for extra damage. Now, increased range could be useful. And again, movement speed, of course, could be useful. I do think Feral Affinity would probably be very useful in Mythic Plus for people to kind of go into cat form and do some damage if possible. It basically gives you the full kind of cat form benefits there with Rake, Rip, and Frost's Bite. Resto Federation, again, does give you extra heals. Not going to be very useful, but Ysera's Gift, healing you for a percentage of your maximum health every 5 seconds, and the ability to heal injured party members if you're at full health. Again, it's a nice little utility overall for the raid. Balance Affinity just gives you the increased yardage rage. You can also then gain Moonkin form. So again, if you want to be a ranged DPSer at times, you have that ability. We have Mighty Bash here. So invokes the Spirit of Ursoc to stun the target for 5 seconds. It is usable in all shapes and forms. Again, that's what I'm currently talented to right now. Mass Entanglement, we all know what that is. Mass roots across everything. Normally has some pretty good usefulness. Typhoon, blast targets within 15 yards in front of you, knocking them back, dazing them. Again, also usable in all forms. 75 row, Soul of the Forest, Mangle generates 5 more rage and deals more damage. So again, an increase in damage, increase in rage generation. Galactic Guardian, so your damage has a chance to trigger a free automatic Moonfire. When that occurs, the next Moonfire you cast generates rage and deals 200% increased direct damage. So again, you get increased damage, it is a ranged ability, you get a free one, and again, it generates rage. So the idea here is that you have these two different kind of rage generators here. In general, the 5% chance I don't think gives you enough to even out the rage generation, but again, I think the damage does end up being relatively close together. Last one here is Incarnation, Guardian of Ursoc. So the 3-minute cooldown, it basically empowers your bear form. It basically turns all of your melee damaging abilities. So again, your Thrash, Mangle, and Swipe already is kind of basically there, but mainly those two, Thrash and Mangle, into just GCDs. Right, you get a 1.5 second GCD. And it causes Mangle to hit up to 3 targets and increases your armor 50%. So it really helps rage generation because, again, you're not waiting for these. You can also stack up your Thrash stacks relatively straightforward. So yeah, it's been empowered. Bear form definitely increases your tanking abilities. Moving on to the 90 row here. We have Earth Warden, so when you deal direct damage with Thrash, you gain a charge of Earth Warden, reducing the damage on the next auto attack you take by 30%. Again, it can't have 3 charges. Basically, it matches the 3 charges that Thrash have, and again, just reduces the next auto attack by 30%, which is a good bit of reduction there when it comes to the auto attack. Survival of the Fittest reduces the cooldown of Bark Skin and Survival Instincts by 33%. Straightforward, you get Bark Skin up more, you get Survival Instincts up more. Guardian of Elune, so Mangle increases the duration of your next Iron Fur by 2 seconds, making it 9 seconds, or the healing of your next Frenzy Regeneration by 20%. Now, it's not additive. It doesn't make it 44% of max health. It just increases it by 20 more percent. So it's, again, it makes it up to like 28, 29% of your health there. Again, with this ability. All right. 100 row, we have Rend and Tear. So when in bear form, Thrash also increases your damage dealt to the target and reduces your damage taken from the target by 2% per application. So again, up to 3 stacks, up to 6%. Lunar Beam, again, is a new ability. Summons a beam of lunar light at your location, dealing arcane damage or healing you over 8 seconds. The cooldown on this is really long for the healing benefit. I wouldn't have minded another healing ability, but the long cooldown on it, I don't know if it's going to be as valuable as Rend and Tear or even Pulverize. So then Pulverize is a devastating blow that consumes 2 stacks of your Thrash. So again, you have to have 2 stacks of Thrash to use it. And it deals a bunch of physical damage. It reduces all damage you take by 9% for 20 seconds. So the idea here basically is you'll be able to keep this Pulverize up all the time. So instead of having a 6% getting from Thrash with Rend and Tear, you would just have a 9% uptime with this. Now it does also remove stacks of Thrash, which again is fine as long as you keep one up for the Blood Frenzy or other type abilities. So again, definitely has some usefulness there. Okay, so let's take a look now at what the rotation here might be like. Let me actually go ahead and put this on my bar. Trying to find where to put it. Let's go ahead and put that there, actually. Okay. Okay. All right, so again, you're trying to just build it up. Whenever you have the Rage, again, you, of course, will normally put up some defensives there. I can get some regen there going. Let's get Bark Spin going. All right, so get that Pulverize up. So the main issue that I tend to find with this, again, is that you basically, in these heavy damage situations, without the ability of having Frenzied Regen up as much as we were in the past, you definitely feel as if you're a bit less with the self-sustain. There we go. So that wasn't necessarily my best. Yeah, I've been getting about minute 10 or so on my own here. Now, again, you would normally have a healer. So again, I wouldn't use this as its own judge. But in general, just as far as tank is concerned, again, I forgot to actually use Incarnation there. What you'll find is that you very quickly, again, when taking kind of constant damage like that, you're not going to be able to self-sustain. Frenzied Regen does not top you off all the time anymore like it used to. And that, I think, really is noticeable. And again, you become more of a almost like a monk-like tank where you have really good damage reduction, obviously, through your Iron Fur uptime and your ability to just have natural general high armor and dodge. But you don't have the kind of self-healing that we used to have with the Death Knights, the Demon Hunters that we have today. So I do think that overall self-sustain is a bit worse than those two, but the overall damage intake is also lower as well. Having looked at all of the tanks now, I can say that Guardian would probably not rank in my top half, but I still think it's going to be relatively viable for most content. It does have the ability, again, with Maul to do relatively good damage at the sacrifice, of course, of survivability with Iron Fur. So again, that's basically just your choice, what you're wanting to go with there. There's also some, of course, other talents around here that can also help with both of those things. Again, you can, of course, take Guardian of the Loon for more increased healing or Iron for uptime. That being said, you have to make sure you're paying attention because, again, normally you're going to probably want the Frenzied Regen over the Iron Fur. And if you use a mangle and then Iron Fur, you're going to kind of waste that charge there. So make sure, again, before you Frenzy Regen, you are mangling if you're taking that talent. Taking a look at our stats now. So again, crit is going to be useful here. Again, crit does translate directly into dodge. So that, again, does help with the dodge chance here. Again, Agi also increases your dodge as well. There's no way to gain parry here. Haste, again, is going to be helpful. Again, you get reduced cooldown on Frenzied Regen, which is quite nice. The more haste you have there. Again, it also affects your Mangle and your Thrash for rage generation, which again can help keep uptime on Iron Fur. Or if you're having a lot of rage, it can translate into increased damage with something like Maw. Versatility, of course, is always a good stat for tanks. It's super good for any tank that can heal themselves because, again, you get the damage and healing done increase. So, again, you get base healing done increase, which, again, would affect things like Frenzy Regen and such, as well as, again, for example, the Lunar Beam healing. Mastery, again, I probably would want more Mastery than I have currently, but Mastery, again, is going to be very nice, increasing your maximum health and healing received. That, to me, was always one of the big advantages of the Druid, was when you're healing the Druid, you're doing more healing to them than you would anyone else. So even though they had a bigger health pool, their Mastery helped them make up for that. So I really do like that fact. And again, it also does help increase any healing you do to yourself. Now, Druid self-healing is definitely reduced. There's no more Mark of Ursa for magic damage reduction, and I do think magic damage is going to be a weakness. You have Barkskin and you have your 5 Instincts, but again, both of those are relatively large cooldowns. Again, 5 Instincts is a very large cooldown. Barkskin's a little bit shorter. You can make it even shorter, of course, with a talent. But again, that's all you really have. You don't have that constant upkeep on magic damage as we've seen in something like a Warrior with Ignore Pain, or even like a Paladin with the talent that they can choose. So I definitely think magic damage Druids are going to suffer a bit, and that's a bit of a shame because that was one of their big strengths previously. So, again, in summary, after that, my main point again here with the Druid is, from a tank that was clearly the top tank, I definitely think there's going to be a change of the guard here. I don't think they're going to be the top tank. I don't think they're going to be horrible. They might not even be, again, I don't think they're the worst tank either. I do think in general the tanks are far better balanced than what we've seen in the past. And in general, they're just all weaker. In general, your tanks are going to be weaker than they were. They're going to require outside healing, which again, at the end of Legion, a lot of them could just survive on their own. Most of them could survive on their own without much external healing. So in general, they're all weaker, and I think in that weakness, they'll find some kind of parity. So it really comes down to, again, more sense of utility and what kind of like toolkits you have. And even there, I think they're a bit lacking. Stampeding Roar is definitely very important. Their ability to do damage with, again, Feral Balance Affinity, and again, just in general, their ability to translate rage into damage is a nice utility at times. But I'm not quite sure that you're going to be seeing nearly as many Guardian Druids out there, especially in top-tier raiding guilds, as you do currently. I do expect the Death Knights, Paladins, Demon Hunters, even Monks, again, to take a bigger chunk of that, maybe even Warrior for, again, spell damage fights. So we'll have to, of course, wait and see. I could be absolutely wrong. Speaking of that, if you agree or like what I had to say, go ahead and give me a like. If you disagreed, again, thought what I was talking about didn't make much sense, go ahead and disagree. If you have any comments you would like to leave, go ahead and leave them down there in the comment section. Of course, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos. I'm going to be finishing out the remaining part of Druid here shortly. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in my future videos.